Welcome to the Live Your Dreams podcast, where success leaves clues and someone has your answer. As always, joined by my lovely co-host, Mrs. Tia Mckisset.
Hello.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, just to give you some humor to start this off with, we were taping and we had a good podcast for you, but unfortunately on Father's Day podcast, we wasn't recording the sound. And again, that was so funny. And I think that's the first time we ever did that we did a whole podcast and we didn't have the sound. So again, this is going to be even better because, again, now that we have everything in store on the podcast. So again, that's life. Unfortunately, we are flawed human beings. And that's a good topic for Father's Day, showing that, we all make mistakes. And this thing called life, we're figuring it out every day. And again, I'm lucky enough to have someone to figure it out with. So talking about Father's Day, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. So talking about Father's Day, Tia, what does Father's Day mean to you?
Well, we got married 28 years ago, and I just wanted to ask you some questions about...
Oh, hold on. So again, let's go.
I wanted to ask you some questions about Father's Day.
Okay.
When you became a father 28 years ago, 26, what was your fears? You was excited. What were your feelings? Yeah,
and that's a good question. I'm glad you used the word fear because, again, that's one of the things that I did have, and, I still have. I'm a flawed human being. And, again, and this is my humble opinion, and I'm speaking only for myself. But, I do try to be macho and say, hey, I'm the man or whatever it may be, but I could not have done this or become the person I am without you. And I think once I humbled myself and learned how to listen and really seek the wisdom that you had, because one thing I could say about you, and I can't say this is every male-female relationship, I'm speaking only for myself, but it's once I started to tap into the wisdom that you had. Your wisdom won't allow me to get hurt. It won't allow you to get hurt, and it won't allow our children to get hurt. So some of the things you say that I may not agree with, when it's all said and done, it makes sense. So when you talk about fears, I had them, I have them. I'm going to be very transparent, take it from your book and Tom's book, be very transparent. I still have fears. I believe that 90% of the communication that I have is with myself. And I work hard, until I work hard to really talk good to myself. Right. My Aunt Ju used to say, be nice to yourself. I really work hard to be nice to myself. But even after all the hard work that I do, I still fall short. And sometimes I still get those fears. And I don't push religion or politics or anyone, but just to say, sometimes I get on my knees and really pray that I can have the faith and the strength, because sometimes life gets challenging, and I'm only speaking for myself, but sometimes life gets challenging and sometimes you don't know. And again, I'm lucky and fortunate that I have you, someone that I can lean on to actually help me through some of those challenging times. And no matter what we do, we could prepare, we can plan, but still, life happens and life comes at you unpredictable. And sometimes life comes at you where you don't know what's going to happen. But you got to have that faith.
Right.
And you really got to have that strength. So when you look at it and you look at some of the things, and again, I'm glad you used that word fear, because that's true, where, speaking only for myself, I had that, and I have that sometimes. But again, luckily, I'm able to, and fortunate enough to have you to actually help me with that.
So, what kind of obstacles did you go through as a father, starting out?
Well, it became easier as we went on, as as when you're raising your oldest, sometimes it becomes challenging because there's things you didn't see before. But then when you get to the youngest, and those same things happen, you're like, oh, I've seen that before, right? I've seen when you get into a relationship how you become obsessed or whatever it may be, and you know how to deal with it, and you know what type of advice to give them, and you know what type of guidance to give them to help them out under that situation. Because you and I have been young before, And we know that how relationships are.
Right.
And you think this relationship is the only relationship, or this relationship is got to be the one. And you have to work through those, because sometimes those don't work out. And again, I know and only speaking for myself, I can't speak for females, but I know for males, once you get hurt or that relationship doesn't work out, I mean, you're emotionally wrecked, right? And you try to be macho and strong, but it really devastates you. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes you need that, I guess, someone to talk to when that happens. So again, I think it became easier, or I wouldn't use the word easier. It became, and I wouldn't even say predictable, mm-hmm. but you see some similarities when you start raising children, and then you see, okay, the first one, you didn't expect that, right? They do something like, whoa. Right. But then when your fourth one do it, you're like, oh, I've seen that before. I've seen that movie, right? And you kind of know how to handle that situation because you've seen that situation before.
And also, I know you always talk about not knowing your father, but I think you did a good job, raising all 4 children, and they're doing good, and you give them good advice when they're going through something. They always come to you.
Yeah, but again, I think I wish I could take that credit, and thank you for saying that, because again, it feels good when somebody gives you those flowers. Well,
that's the first thing they say is,
yeah, but I gotta stop you and say I couldn't have done none of that without you, because again, I think
we're a team.
Yeah, I think without you, I couldn't have been the strong person that I have become, because again, I know no matter how much I may fight outside of the house, when I come in the house, I know there is no fight.
Right.
Right? I know for a fact when I come into the house, I have no one to fight with. Because again, I know we can talk, and I think you and I can have that understanding that when we come in the house, this is where you and I can take our guards down, Right. So again, me not having a father, again, although it was difficult, because I had no litmus test to say, okay, I'm a good father, bad father, or whatever it may be. I think I didn't look at that and say, okay, even though I didn't know my father, I'm going to have low expectations. I think I still said I wanted to be the father that my children, I think my number one goal, my children would never have to look for me. Because again, that pain of sitting on the curb, which I talked about before, just saying, okay, there's my father coming by, and the cars just keep going by, and your father never come. Mm-hmm. And it gets dark, and he never comes. And hearing the jokes where you knew he wasn't going to come, it hurts. Even though someone may say that to you, as a child, it hurts.
Right.
I didn't want that type of pain to be, I'm the cause of that pain to anyone. And I definitely didn't want that cause of that pain to be for the children that I brought into this world. So again, that was my way of saying, that's what a good father is. So anyone out there, if you didn't know your father, because unfortunately my story isn't rare, right?
Right.
My story is, unfortunately, many people share that. So anyone out there who didn't have a father, I'm telling you, it's possible. If I could do it, anybody could do it. You can change that cycle and say, you know what, even though I didn't know my father, I'm going to ensure that I make sure I'm not going to cause that pain for anyone else. I'm going to break that cycle so that no one will feel that pain that I felt, that I had to look for my father, or I didn't know where my father was. He promised me he was going to come pick me up,
right,
and never did. I didn't want that pain to be inflicted on anyone, and I didn't want to cause that,
Right. So your grandfather, he had 8 kids, and I know when we first got married, you said, I want 8 kids.
Yeah, and believe it or not, my grandfather was a great role model for me. That's one thing I could say. And I'm talking about my mom's mother, although I did know my father's.
Right.
I'm talking about my mom's father, although I did know my father's father too. But I had a good relationship with my mother's father because I knew him very well, because I would always be there every day. But I did want 8 because something got into me when I was about 19, 20 here, where I really wanted to change my life. And I really wanted to, because unfortunately for me, and I'm only speaking for myself, every stereotype there was that was negative, I was bombarded with. And this could have just been me. I don't know. But I so bad wanted to disprove those stereotypes I was told. So I wanted, first and foremost, to get married. You know, I wanted that bad. I wanted to have children, and I wanted to have 8, and like my grandfather. But you know, you were fortunate enough not to work outside the house our entire marriage. But once we got 1 and 2, and then 3, and then 4, it started to be very financially challenging with the lifestyle we were living, because we were going on vacation. We were doing things that was, our dreams. We really wanted to have memories. Having 8, I mean, and we always had minivans. I think throughout our marriage we had 5 minivans.
Yeah.
We had every type of Windstar, a Town and Country, a Caravan. I mean, we had every type. Honda, yeah, Odyssey. I mean, we had every type of minivan there was. But we would have had to have a 15-passenger if we would have went to 8.
That's true.
We wouldn't have been able to have one vehicle to have them. So I think that would have been hard to do. Because, again, with 15, to travel in one vehicle would have been hard, you know. Although I think throughout our marriage we always had 2 vehicles at least. But, again, we always liked to be in one vehicle. It was something about that. We always had fun in that one. We always wanted to be in one vehicle, even if when we had 2 vehicles, the kids said, let's all ride together.
Ride together.
It was always like
talk,
that. Yeah, we like to talk. We always had a
TV.
Really tight, because we had TVs in the van. We always had a tight family. And but once we got past 4, it became, I guess, for me, and I'm only talking about my financial situation, the lifestyle that we wanted to live would have been kind of difficult. To have 8. For my grandfather had 8, you know, I mean, he really worked really hard, and he set that example of what it took to provide for a family. He really set that example of being that father for someone. So, again, I did want 8, but after that, I did change my mind. Right. I did change my mind. I think, after 4, I think I was done. So let's talk about some of the fathers in our life. And again, and it was so great for me. I was able to be exposed to your father.
Right.
Who showed me a different way to live, right? So who were some of the people that was impactful for you as a father?
Well, of course, my father. Mm-hmm. He was a very bubbly, happy man, and always... You know, he was very, very strict on us. We're triplets. So he was very, very strict. You know, he knew what the boys wanted out here. So he just tried to protect us at all costs.
Yeah. And I think he did a good job. And, again, I was fortunate with that. And even my brother would always say, man, you lucky you had Tom in your life. Mm-hmm. And again, I look back now and say, my brother was right. Right. Having Tom in my life really helped me and changed my life in a whole different direction. And again, not making any excuses for anyone. And again, not saying, I'm not making excuses for anyone. But again, for me, it was fortunate. I can't take that away. Having Tom in my life really changed my life. And again, that helped me big time.
He sincerely just wanted to help you, help
absolutely.
Us, be good parents and do what he did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you look at that, one thing about it is, and again, I'm glad you're sharing this stage with me on the podcast, because I think success do leave clues. Someone does have your answer, and I really believe we're going to help somebody. Because one of the things about it, it is true that you can change your life. I'm living proof of that. Mm-hmm. It's also true you can have a healthy relationship. I'm sure of that. And again, we're not perfect. I stress that because, again, sometimes what Tom did for me, he made life seem achievable because he never tried to put himself on a pedestal. and say that he was perfect. And it made life achievable for me. So again, I'm trying for someone out there trying to let you know that we're not perfect. Life is achievable for you.
And I think also that if you are a father, that just spend time with your kids. It really means a lot, because when they're young, they think about what happened when they was younger, when they become adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All the times when because again, I was a scrapper. I think that helped us too. And that's why I'm glad we're doing this podcast for Memories. But I was a scrapper, so my children sometimes grab the scrapbook and go back, 20 years ago or whatever it may be. And
we look back and say, hey, we went to Florida, and we looking at the pictures, and it feels good because life is all about memories.
Absolutely.
When you're gone, it's all about memories and pictures.
Yeah,
and what you did and what you learned.
And one thing where I try to stress to people is that tomorrow's not promised. And I think sometimes we miss that, and we think that we have forever, and that's not true. Yeah. You have only today.
We got to really stop taking each other for granted.
Absolutely.
And really, love each other. If you're a father, love your children. Help them with homework. Take them out to eat. Do something, to spend time with them.
Yeah, and one thing I would say, and again, this is my humble opinion, I never try to push anything on anybody. Hey, do you. But one of the things I would always say is that, especially for men, if you are fortunate enough to get in a relationship, I would just listen, man. Because, again, sometime, one thing I could say about you, T, is that you would never give me advice that would jeopardize me, that would jeopardize you, or jeopardize the children. All your advice is wisdom, and all your advice comes from a place where it's best for the family.
Right. When you love someone, you want the best for them.
Right, and I think...
So sometimes, as a woman, you could get angry because you're trying to get your point across.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been many times where I didn't listen, and you were trying to get that point across, but as I'm getting older, you start to realize, like, that makes sense, right? When my ego starts to where I say, you know what, it ain't that big of a deal. I need to just stop and listen. And I think for individuals out there, I'm telling you, sometimes you just got to stop and listen, because again, you'll find yourself in a position where you'll say, you know what, that makes sense. And if we do go left or right or whatever direction that we may agree upon, I think it's best. And again, that's the number one thing I learned, especially for Father's Day, I would say, is that you got to listen.
Right.
You really got to just stop and listen. That's one of the things where I think that helped me the most in our relationship, is really understanding that we're a team.
Right.
And again, it's no boss here, right? When I'm outside of the house, I could do all types of things. But when I'm in the house, it's time, sometimes you just got to seek wise counsel. And one thing I could say, you do have wise counsel. I do say that.
We are a team. We try to let our kids know not to put us against each other, or, that we need each other.
Yeah, and I think one good thing about our children is that they're close too. All four of them are close. And I guess one of the things, now that I'm older, I see, because when I was young, I used to think, like, how do people break apart? How do families break apart? And I think in one of our podcasts, we talked about, hey, when that central individual leave, no longer here, then families start to fall apart.
Right.
But one of the things I think we can do is, now that you and I are here, we work hard to keep our family tight, so that if you and I do leave, they're still tight and they understand the importance of having each other, because life happens.
Right.
And I think when we realize that life happens, it's unpredictable, and you need someone to lean on,
Right. And you got to think about the ones that's gone. They would want us to stick together.
Absolutely.
You have to treat it as if they were still here.
Absolutely. Because again, and especially with even though this is Father's Day, you can't talk about Father's Day without talking about the women. Your mom, her number one thing was family.
Family.
If you say anything about Miss Short, her number one thing was family. Every Sunday she would have a dinner, or she always did something to keep everybody together.
Right.
Like whether it was having something at the house every Sunday,
Right.
or doing something. She always did something to keep the family together because she knew it was nothing like family.
Right.
I mean, and I share that vision and I share that wisdom, right? And I think that's a part of the thing where we have to learn how to lean on that wisdom and really say, you know what, life, tomorrow's not promised. What's really important? Because, I talk to so many people and everybody try to figure out this thing about life, like, why am I here, or whatever it may be. But one of the things we do know, that family is important. And if we, I think, are convinced that family is important, we need to spend our time making sure that relationship is right.
Right.
Right?
Like my grandmother used to say, when they babies, they're on your knee. When they get older, they're on your heart.
Oh, I think that's 100% right. I think that's wisdom. Again, that's definitely wisdom, and I believe that. Because, again, I think you're right. Like, even especially with the girls, it was so weird when they were young. I mean, I couldn't do no wrong.
Right.
But as they become teenagers, it's like I could do everything wrong. But now that they're getting older, it's like now they're back.
Right.
Right? Like,
you go through stages in life.
Yeah, and that's weird. So anybody out there, trust me, it's just stages. And sometimes you may think that, hey, I'm doing something wrong, but it's just the stages of life.
Right. And if you have a little baby, an infant, or a toddler, cherish that time. I know people be saying, I can't wait till they get a certain age, but you cherish it because you're going to go through different stages of life with your child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's definitely the part. And when we say the good and the bad, the good happens and the bad happens. And it's just the seasons of life.
Right.
I think no matter how prepared you are in life, things that happen unexpectedly. And that's just life. And that's what makes you better, by being able to deal with those situations, whatever they may be, to understand that's a part of life, that's a part of the growth cycle.
Right.
So Father's Day, again, to me, I want to definitely speak to all fathers out there, especially if you didn't know your father. One of the things I would tell you, I'm a living example that you can be a great father even if you didn't know your father. I'm a living example that even though if you sat on that curb waiting for your father to come and he never showed up, I know that feeling. I know that pain. I'm just out there really telling you, don't have anyone else feel that pain.
And love doesn't cost anything.
It doesn't. And one of the things I would tell you, especially when it comes to fathers, I mean, I've talked to so many people, especially individuals who were maybe locked away or whatever it was. Their children never stop loving them, man. And their children always want them to be a part of their life. And it's nothing like the love of a father for a child. So no matter what you may have done in the past, I'm just lobbying to all fathers out there. Take this day. It's possible. Tomorrow's not promised. Let's get that back, man. Because, again, we have such a vital part to play in the family. Let's play it, man. And, again, to all the fathers that's doing their job every day, and I know how hard it is. I mean, great job. Again, pat on your back because, again, I know how it could be tough out there. So great job. Enjoy this day because this is a great day to celebrate, right? And, again, you got to take those celebration days and make them big and say, look, let's celebrate. Because, again, something may happen tomorrow that's unexpected, but today let's celebrate the fathers and really appreciate the fathers out there that's doing their job. And again, I think this is probably one of the best days of the year. And again, every day is Father's Day, just like every day is Mother's Day. It's a team, right?
It's a team effort.
So again, to all the fathers, happy Father's Day out there. I mean, really, really just want to support you and say that, hey, man, just great job. So in closing, Tia, what else do you have for us?
And if you're not a father, if you're a father, go adopt somebody else. Adopt a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be there for them.
Yeah, so many children out there that just want somebody to talk to. It's just so so many children. I always say, people say, hey, people go to bed hungry. But I think a lot of people go to bed without that encouraging word,
Right.
And that's one of the things where I think we all can lend a hand with that, right?
Right.
I think we could. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. All right, and again, I'll see you, and yes, I do mean you, living your dreams. Peace. Hold on, there we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and wrapping up. I'm getting there, right? I'll see you, and yes, I do mean you, living your dreams. Peace.